Okay. Good evening, everybody. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Jim, it's looking a little updated in here. It's looking pretty
Yes, it
snazzy.
is.
I like the way it looks. A
Yes.
little
It's
more
a good
color.
look. Evan, our producer's been busy behind the scenes coming together with a new look for us. So you guys got to comment in the live chat, those of you watching us on YouTube, and let us know what you think about the new look.
Yep. Absolutely. My goodness, I am messing up over here. Anyway, how are we doing, everybody? How are we doing? Jim, speaking of a new look, well, it looks like the Blue Jays have a bit of a new look themselves.
Yes.
Adding my ginger brethren to the team, Justin Turner. And let's just start hot. Let's just get into it, right? Justin Turner heading to the Blue Jays. I got to just ask immediate thoughts. I know you did a stream this morning.
Yep.
Now that you've had the day to digest, to, really let it sink in, what are you thinking? How are you feeling about the signing for your Blue Jays?
Let it digest, let it sink in, get into some arguments on Twitter with some Blue Jay fans that had unrealistic expectations. We've had the whole thing today. I like it. I feel like I saw it coming. Initially, my focus was on Jock Peterson because of the dollars. As soon as Jock Peterson went off the board, it kind of felt like Justin Turner was the guy because of the dollars. Yep. I think Ben Nicholson-Smith even commented that if the Blue Jays would have given JD Martinez $20 million, JD Martinez would be a Blue Jay. If the Blue Jays had given 3 for $45 to Jorge Soler would be a Blue Jay. But that's not the case. And the reason that's not the case, and I feel like there's some Blue Jay fans that their skull is too thick for this to get through. The financial situation isn't whatever you're dreaming it to be, isn't what some misguided beat reporter is trying to explain it to be. JT is the guy because he fit the financial situation. They're well in the first luxury tax threshold. And if they go out and they try to sign another big bat, another splashy kind of free agent move, they will likely move into the second penalty, the second threshold. And this team's not going to do that for the free agents that are out there. Just not going to happen. So they make a nice move here. I like what he brings to the table, not just from the fact that he fits with the budget, but he also he decreases the whiff rate. He increases the production in general, right? He would have been a top 2 or 3 bat on last year's team. And on top of that, we got a guy that is killer against lefties. He's killer in the clutch. There's really nothing to dislike about him. Jays fans are out here hating the fact that he's 39. Get over it, is what I have to say about that. So I like it. I'm on board, even after arguing with some Blue Jay fans on Twitter and thinking about it more, having 12 hours to do so. I still like the deal. I think the Blue Jays upgraded good things with Justin Turner and the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, I got to experience Justin Turner last year, full season, 1 year. But it was a very good 1 year. It was a solid year. A good clubhouse guy, right? Really helps out the chemistry there. I think in the end, that's a big thing that the Blue Jays, I've touched on that before. And I wouldn't necessarily say there's bad chemistry with the team, but just felt like something wasn't right. Like, I don't know, maybe they were like too uptight or something there. I don't know. Like just something felt off with all the talent that they have.
Yep.
Something just didn't feel right. We don't know what that is exactly, but I feel like with Turner, anywhere he goes, he seems to bring that positive energy. And we saw it last year with the Red Sox, right? And with Turner, he's not that left-handed bat that maybe the Blue Jays could have used, but in the end, I think he's just going to be a steady force. Now, where with the money, you're bringing up, the payroll stuff, I do wonder what that could mean for with JD Martinez, maybe what kind of money he's looking for. I would think you're probably looking for a little bit more than what Turner ended up getting. He ended up getting the $13 million. There's some bonuses there. I would say probably JD is looking somewhere in that 15 to 20 range a little bit. And they probably just thought, you know what, Jorge Soler, he's looking for 3 years. Maybe they just didn't want to commit to the 3 years. That seems to be kind of where I'm thinking there. And I think in the end, Justin Turner was like that happy medium
Yep.
kind of a guy to go to there. So
Definitely. I think with JD Martinez, if JD Martinez was going to take 15 million, I think they would have gotten JD Martinez. The fact that they went for, because remember, JT can get up to 14.5 with the incentives. The fact that that's the deal that Justin Turner signed, and they didn't land JD, tells me that JD Martinez wants to be closer to that 20 number. Otherwise, the Blue Jays, he would have been the guy. He is the better guy. You wanted a solid number 4 hitter protecting Vladdy? Yes, I want JD Martinez too. Everybody else in Blue Jays Nation. But I also don't want it to be Danny Jansen. I don't want it to be Alejandro Kirk, which is what it was shaping up to be. So I like that they did something. And what's interesting too, this does still, again, this Justin Turner deal leaves them a little bit of flexibility to add some more depth in places if they need to without entering that second threshold. So that's nice. And then the other thing it does, if they wanted to get out of that tax threshold, they didn't want to get in there, be in there again, and start to accrue these penalties, they could trade Yusei Kikuchi and then get down to a spot where they are right on the edge and could get back out of it. But I don't think that's going to happen. But if they felt that desire, they could do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it feels like there's not a lot of offseason left.
Right.
But there's a lot of offseason left.
Yeah.
Right? I think we're going to be in store for a pretty busy couple of weeks. We even had the trade last night with Jorge Polanco.
Mm-hmm.
We'll touch on that in a little bit. I also do wonder JD Martinez, I don't think he would have cost all that much more than Justin Turner. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some serious interest there. I wonder if maybe, because anytime I think of Blue Jays, I think Toronto, I think Canada, I wonder if there was any interest maybe from JD going to Canada. I wonder if that maybe came up at all in some way, shape, or form. Because in my personal opinion, I love Justin Turner. He's my ginger brother.
Yep.
To me, I don't know. I'm leaning Martinez there if I'm looking for a bat. So I wonder if maybe that came into play. Who knows? But in the end, you can't hate it, right? There's really not much to not like besides the age, all right? But with Justin Turner, he seems to be fine. You're talking about Twitter today. My goodness, Red Sox fans were all kinds of emotional about it.
Yep.
Me, you kind of know how I am. Yeah, I do look at the emotional part of things as well, but I mainly look at the dollars. I mainly look at the value they're bringing to the team. Yeah, Justin Turner was solid for the most part, but I don't think the Red Sox brought him back simply because they thought he was just too much, right? And no, that doesn't mean they can't afford him. According to Fangraphs, he was worth $9 million last year, according to his field value. And he ended up getting 13. My guess with the Red Sox, they're simply looking for a bat that can go up against left-handed pitching. They already have all these lefty bats. They don't need any more lefties, right? They don't necessarily need a righty bat that's going to go up against both righties and lefties because they have all the lefty bats. So they're really looking for a right-handed bat that will go up against left-handed pitching. Justin Turner, very good option, right? Hit lefties very well last year. However, for the Red Sox and the Blue Jays, the difference there is the Blue Jays could have just used another hitter overall, right? Going up against righties and lefties.
Yeah.
With the Red Sox, on the other hand, and this is what I want Red Sox fans to understand, in my opinion, they didn't necessarily need that. They needed more of a righty that can hit those lefties really well. Yes, Turner could have been that option. However, there are other options out there that would be cheaper that could bring similar production against left-handed pitching. Guys like Garrett Cooper, even Gary Sanchez could be a possibility if they wanted to have a third catcher. There are options out there. Even on the trade market, there's options. Someone like a Harold Ramirez on the Rays. Will they do an in-division trade? I don't know. But there are options out there, and I just wanted to point that out for Red Sox fans. I know we're talking Blue Jays here, but a lot of Red Sox fans today, Jim, they were getting a little much, and it was just, I was kind of rolling my eyes at it, and it's like, oh my goodness. If anyone should get emotional about Justin Turner leaving, it should be me. My only ginger brother in the world. And I get it. It's just, but like a lot of people, it's weird how you say that Blue Jays fans were reacting negatively. I'm thinking, why would you react negatively to this? This is a nice, solid signing for you.
It should be, right? But the problem is, there are Blue Jay fans that got excited about the Ohtani chase and then figured that the Blue Jays were going to have all this money, then that they would go and pivot to all these other players. Yeah. So there are fans that were, quite frankly, just confused by the whole scenario. I mean, look, we consume all the content all the time. This is that's why I hate getting in arguments with a lot of with people on Twitter, is because we are in it all day long, consuming content, consuming news. We're seeing more than the average Joe out there, right? We're seeing stuff not just on one team, but on all teams. And there are people that missed the unicorn budget thing from the Toronto Blue Jays, that the Blue Jays had 2 payroll budgets, a unicorn budget and then the standard operating procedure budget. Yeah. And the unicorn budget was for Ohtani. So if you missed that, you just thought that the Blue Jays had all of this money to spend. And okay, we missed on Ohtani, but you know what? We're going to go get JD Martinez and Cody Bellinger and Blake Snell. It's going to be awesome. That was never going to happen. So now Blue Jay fans are obsessed with this Justin Turner signing. This is what we heard. So there were 3 lanes, sort of. One lane was, I like it, I get it, this is a good signing, right? Those are the people that understand the financial situation and all that. Then there are those that they like it, but they like it as it only if there's more moves coming. And then there are the people that hate it altogether because he's 40. He's not 40. He's 39. Don't do that to somebody. When they're a year away from 40, don't start calling them 40. So there's sort of 3 different lanes, and 2 of them are not really that happy. And I mean, again, that Blue Jay, the fan base that's hoping that there's this and then more. It's the only thing they can do is a trade. They're not going to make any free agent signings that's going to make any of those fans happy. Now, a trade can be executed, but a free agent signing that's going to make that group of fans happy, it's not out there to be had.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's kind of what you're going to get into when it comes to Twitter land, X land, right?
Yeah.
It's all what even if you signed Ohtani, there are still going to be people out there that still would have hated it, right? Yeah. It would be like, oh my goodness, you're paying this much money for this one player. It's like, you're never going to make everyone happy. Nope. So we both got to experience that today.
It was fun. It was a blast.
Oh yeah, it's always interesting getting mixed up in Twitter land about
right,
whatever. I would probably say that we can kind of shift gears here. Already touched on my Red Sox a little bit. Touched on the Red Sox fans out there. I love all of you. I felt like the reaction today was a little overblown. Right. I think it has more to do with just the Red Sox offseason in general, which I wouldn't exactly call a bad offseason. It's just not what you expected it to be, right? And that's what
isn't it kind of though? Bad. Isn't it? I got to push back. Isn't it kind of a bad offseason?
No, not at all. No, I don't think it's a bad offseason. Okay. Like if you're here in the middle, right? If this is good and this is bad, we're not down here. Right. Okay. We're just still in that what the heck are we doing range, right? They have made some good moves, in my opinion.
Okay.
Clearing payroll, getting rid of the bad sale contract, bringing in some little pieces. Tyler O'Neill, again, you're kind of banking on some ifs there.
Yep.
They've made some decent, productive moves, but not anything great, right? Now, if you go and get Jordan Montgomery, right? Maybe something else
immediately.
Out there, then good.
It becomes a good offseason. If they can get Jordan Montgomery, this is instantly a good offseason for the Red Sox in my book. For sure.
Right now, it's a C. It's a C.
I would agree with that. Yes, I agree with that.
It's not bad. It's bad in the eyes of you were expecting something great, right? But you haven't done even anything good. You haven't done anything bad, right?
Right.
You've made some good logistical moves,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But that's as far as you can go. But when you got the ownership and everything saying full throttle, pulling all the levers, and it's like, what are we doing?
They're
Like,
never gonna live that down. They will never live that
no,
down.
and it's like it's weird because, and this is why I don't think they ever want to talk to the media,
Right.
because they always say the dumbest things, and
Mhm.
they always get in trouble with things they say, and it's like I'd rather just not. I not you always hear people say, "Why doesn't John Henry talk?" Where it's like, well, can you? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and defend the guy, but anytime he talks, it's like someone's going to take something he says, and they're just going to use it against him.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
just kind of how people have been.
Mhm.
But then I can also understand where those people are coming from too, because you're
Yeah.
saying these things, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, I can talk about my Red Sox for hours, but let's kind of get into what's next for some of these other guys out here. Talking about Jorge Soler, this was a guy that I think a lot of Blue Jays fans thought was realistic, right?
Mhm.
Once you had Jock Peterson come off the board, right? Jock Peterson seemed to be a big target for the Blue Jays, and then he
Mhm.
went to the Diamondbacks, a team Soler was also connected with. Well, you checked off two boxes right there. Well, then it seemed almost inevitable that Soler would be a Toronto Blue Jay. I got to ask you your opinion on this as a Blue Jays lover. Are you upset at all with not getting Jorge Soler?
No, because I never really thought it was realistic. I
Yeah.
mean, call me a pessimistic Blue Jays fan. I never thought it was realistic because I didn't think they could afford him. So in my mind, I had checked out on that a while ago. When they signed IKF, Blue Jays fans, you want to hate on the IKF signing even more. When they signed Isaiah Kiner Falefa, that in my mind killed any chances of a Jorge Soler deal, because the money that they gave to IKF plus the money they gave to Justin Turner would have been enough to give them a nice buffer to bring in Jorge Soler. And what stings even more is the Jays don't need IKF. Let's just call it what it is. I get that we are bringing the swing and miss rate down with Turner and IKF, but I gave up on Jorge Soler back then. So
Yeah.
I had sort of moved on. I do think that he would have been a nice fit, but I was kind of preparing myself for this.
Well, we still got some teams out there
Oh yeah.
that could use Jorge Soler still.
Mhm.
I'm seeing Red Sox fans, even today, still holding out hope that
Yep.
Soler will go there. I don't see it happening. At one
Mm-mm.
point, I did think, maybe this could actually happen, right? Right-handed bat,
Yeah.
needed a right-handed bat. Then I started talking to a couple of people behind the scenes, and they
Mhm.
told me Alex Cora, the way he likes to operate, he likes to have that versatility. Yes, Soler can go play the outfield, but the Red Sox
Mhm.
got 5 outfielders right now. And it's
Mhm.
like, where are you gonna rotate these guys? Like, how are you gonna it's not gonna work, right?
Nope.
They have all these different righty lefty matchups where it makes sense for them to keep the DH spot open. So Jorge Soler at this point, yes, the bat works, but when it comes to the other things, don't think it really works. And again, I'll touch on this one more time. For the Red Sox fans, I would expect either Garrett Cooper, maybe Gary Sanchez, something along those lines. Maybe a trade for a bat that we're not even thinking of, someone like a Harold Ramirez.
Yeah.
That is something I could see. But for Jorge Soler, I think a team like the Mets still make some sense, but you got David Stearns there. Does he see value in signing Soler to a 3-year deal? I don't know. We got, maybe, I don't know. Like if I'm thinking of some other teams out here, I'm going a little blank,
Right.
some possibilities. I don't know. In your opinion, is it either Mets or just go back to the Marlins? What do you think?
Well, that's that I feel like that is kind of the hardest. That's the most difficult element, and maybe the most interesting portion of this off season is that there's these teams should be able to find a destination, but the fit just isn't right. It's not like a perfect. It's not like you're putting a puzzle together and you got the three spots and you slide it in there and it works. Because Toronto, Boston, you could the Mets, the Diamondbacks before Jock Peterson, even the Cubs. Like there are teams that need more bats, but the problem is it's not a great fit. Milwaukee was a team. Rhys Hoskins comes in. Arizona was a team. Jock Peterson comes in. So those are two. And now Toronto is. So the market keeps shrinking for these guys, which is great for the Boston Red Sox because now Jorge Soler's like, okay, Toronto's off the board. Boston's off the board. Arizona's off the board. Milwaukee's off the board. Like all these teams are coming off. And okay, I might have to take a deal that I didn't want to take at the beginning. So, because, when I looked at the teams for JD Martinez and Jorge Soler, and we have removed the Blue Jays, the Diamondbacks, and the Brewers now from the equation. Yeah. And even the Brewers were tough because the Brewers, their DH is probably going to be Christian Yelich now. So you've got to have that DH spot open. The Mets don't. The Mets, I don't know what the Mets are doing. Nobody knows what the Mets are doing when it comes to they have $10 million left. They just signed Adam Ottavino, right? Like maybe the Mets are done spending money. Yeah. So this all plays out historically, this would play out for the player, but it kind of feels like this is going to play out for the team to where we get to a point where the Cubs or the Red Sox land one of these guys for cheap and are able to get the 1-year deal. I mean, that may be what the plan is. Let's just wait them out because teams keep coming off the board and they got to sign somewhere.
Yeah, this is kind of where I'm looking at the next couple of weeks where I think we could end up having a pretty fun couple of weeks here before pitchers and catchers because it's make or break time, right? We're getting there at least, right? Maybe another week. Maybe next Monday, right? Maybe we start seeing some very busy action. But you're now seeing these guys where they've had these demands, Soler 3, maybe even 4 years. Who knows? I think 3 seems to be what he's looking for. To where him and his agent, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and be like, all right, we're probably going to have to lower down to 2, right? Maybe even, an option, a 1 and an option. Right. Something like that. Right. Try to maximize the dollars as much as I can. Then if you go down to a 2-year deal, maybe that can end up opening up some things like, believe it or not, my prediction for Jorge Soler in the beginning of the offseason was the Tigers, right? Random team. And I thought, I feel like they could just use a bat, right? They got some younger bats there. Colt Keith, who they just signed to an extension, hasn't even made it to the major league. So that's going to be a fun bat to pay attention to. But like something like that, where right now they have Kerry Carpenter projected for the DH spot, but he's a lefty and he doesn't really hit lefties very well. So kind of wonder if maybe you could do something with Soler there. I don't know. Tigers fans probably rolling their eyes thinking, well, they're not going to do anything. But it's again, if you lower those years, then things can happen, right? All of a sudden, teams that you're not thinking about could all of a sudden enter the race. For me, if I'm going with a couple of teams, I'm thinking Mets. Mets probably pony up if it's a 2-year deal. Maybe a random team like the Tigers. You feeling? What do you think? What are you thinking here with Jorge Soler?
Well, what's interesting is the if the Texas Rangers can get their money situation squared away. They could do it. Yeah, right now, the DH that is projected on Fangraphs is Wyatt Langford.
Love that.
I don't think not yet. I can't imagine yet.
I do love it.
I do too. But I can't imagine yet. So JD Martinez there. If they can get their 90, because what's the thing holding up the Montgomery deal is the question marks beyond the 2024 season. Well, JD Martinez is a potentially 1-year guy. If Jorge Soler's market comes down to a look, all right, just tell everybody Soler will take a 1-year deal. 5 teams may step up that right now are not there. And the Rangers would be one of those teams if a 1-year deal was on the table. I think the Tigers could also be in play. The Mets would not be so interested in a 1-year deal, but maybe the Red Sox would. So you could stir up some interest with some other teams by doing that. I am fascinated by the thought of the Rangers. Wouldn't it be amazing if the Rangers somehow, as difficult of an offseason it has been for them, if they can come out of this offseason with Jordan Montgomery and JD Martinez between now and March 1st. Like I don't think it's unreasonable to think that could play out. If they can get that $90 million for 2024, that helps secure JD Martinez. And yeah, I know Jordan Montgomery, it is what it is. Maybe Jordan Montgomery takes a 1-year deal. As insane as that sounds, I feel like we're getting into insane territory as it is. He's not going to take a 1-year deal. But the point is, maybe the Rangers can figure something out with Jordan Montgomery. And because I still think, despite all of their financial hurdles, the Rangers got to get Montgomery back. I feel like they just have to.
Yeah. It could be, I think with that, we'll get back to the Soler thing in a second. The thing I keep thinking about with Montgomery, is he going to want to wait for them? That's the only thing, because it's like he has other things in his personal life that are there, right? His wife, like he has to kind of figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I would feel, right? I'd be like, all right, like, come on, we got to figure out our situation here. Like, am I going to be living in a different state? My wife's in Boston. She's got to figure out stuff with her schooling, with the residency, whatever. So I'm not sure how those rules work exactly. But if it were me, personal life, I would kind of want to know what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is where I think the Red Sox, it sounds maybe a little, I don't know, there's negotiations at the end of the day. It sounds a little dirty, but I think the Red Sox are like, hey, he's kind of backed into a corner here, right? So, hey, 3-year, we'll talk with you, right?
Yeah.
Any more than that? No.
Yeah.
The Rangers, I think, could be interesting, and that's where I do think JD Martinez could make some sense, right? Because they are seeming to go to those 1-year deals. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, with Wyatt, I love me some Wyatt Langford, man. He is actually projected for I'm looking at the numbers right now. They are projecting him for a 263 average, a 337 on base, and a 474 slugging. Now, what a rookie season that would be. But I understand, though, you can't, yes, the guy's going to be really good, but it could make some sense to maybe bring in JD Martinez. I'll say this. Why not the Marlins for JD Martinez? Hey, Miami guy, born and raised there, 1-year deal. That's what Craig Mish was reporting with the Marlins, saying they would like Soler back if he took like a 1-year deal. All right. But he's looking for more years. So I wonder if JD Martinez could be a piece for the Marlins there. That could make some sense. So it's going to be interesting what happens with these guys. And then, of course, the Mets. You could see JD Martinez go to the Mets. Maybe if they want to do the 1-year deal. At this point, I actually feel like JD Martinez could end up going somewhere else if he's willing to do the 1 year. That's the only thing. I haven't heard anything about what length of a deal he's looking for exactly. We have heard with Soler that there's 3 years seems to be what he's going for, right? We haven't heard that with JD Martinez. I don't know what he's willing to do. Is he just going to do 1 year until the end of his career, or is he looking for a 2-year deal?
Yeah,
maybe. I mean, he just did the 1 year with the Dodgers, so maybe he would like to maybe get a couple, right? So it's going to be interesting. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Anybody that has not gone and looked up Wyatt Langford's numbers in the minors last year, it's a joy. Go do it.
So
take the 10 seconds, Google Wyatt Langford MILB, and look at what he did in 44 games at rookie, A, AA, and AAA. He touched all levels and he hit at every stop.
Yeah.
I mean, that is incredible that he went out there and was that good after being drafted. How many times do we see players get drafted and then they don't start playing pro ball until the following year? Happens pretty regularly. Not Wyatt Langford. This dude obviously loves baseball. Fantastic stuff. But what's interesting about Jordan Montgomery is that it kind of feels like his market, and I did a premiere on the YouTube channel tonight. Kind of feels like his market has collapsed because if the Red Sox are going to pass because they don't want to go the multiple years, if the Rangers are out of reach, as Ken Rosenthal put out there, then you start to wonder who could come into play. I hypothesize the Twins could come into play, but they have a financial situation that they are at a spot with their 150 or so million. Actually, it's going to be less now because Polanco's gone. They are in a spot where can they afford Jordan Montgomery? But he would be a good fit for them. You've got the Angels could fit in there, and the Giants could fit in there. Outside of that, I really feel like he's in a bind. And I don't know. One team, and maybe this can transition us to our next point. One team that could jump in if the paperwork can go through soon enough, the Baltimore Orioles, because we know the Orioles still need a top of the rotation guy. John Angelos just won't pony up the money for it. Maybe new ownership coming in. Can we get the paperwork? Can we get this thing moving? Can we get the new guys taking over and give Mike Elias the green light to go out there and make some impact signings? It'll be interesting. So, for anybody that hasn't heard, we've got word that the Orioles are selling the team, that they have two investors that are going to be taking over, that John Angelos, the Orioles fan base, has long suffered under this Angelos regime. It's been a mess. It's been an absolute nightmare. If a team started to give you hope, you knew it was short-lived because John Angelos was not going to sustain it. And that was the biggest fear that was in the hearts and minds of Orioles fans right now, is that this would not be sustainable with John Angelos, because he ran to the New York Post last year, not asked to do it. He just went to do it to tell everybody how he basically can't afford to sign multiple players to these $100 million contracts. So a great thing for the Orioles. I ask you this, Robbie. Do you sort of feel like, I don't know, maybe it's me because I live close to the area. Do you sort of feel like maybe a little bit of the ground is shaking in the American League East as a Red Sox fan? As a Jays fan, I kind of worry about the Orioles even more now. If they get a motivated owner, you get a motivated owner with money to spend, and Mike Elias pulling the trigger. Orioles fans got to be excited, right?
Yeah, the way I see it a little differently than the Mets situation, right? Steve Cohen, that dude was a Mets fan, right?
Yeah.
There was a different feel to that, where it felt like he was going to be on a bit of a mission, right? From the early going, right? Yeah, he had a fun couple of years, but then he realized, okay, all right, this ain't fully working. We tried for the couple of years to put some talent on the field. Worked out the first year, won over 100 games, but then it collapsed last year. So that's why you bring in Stearns to make some, better future decisions, right? You can understand why they did the moves they did, because they weren't in a position to, bring up some young guys. They had to go buy players because they didn't have the players to call up, right? So it makes sense. But now they're starting to get that talent. They're doing it in the right way, right? It was the right way prior anyway. But my point is, it feels different with the Orioles, right? Because I believe, if I were to go to the report here, so it's going to be David Rubenstein of the Carlisle Group and Mike Arrighetti of the Ayers Management Corporation. I feel like when you have big corporations like that, they tend to lean more towards the analytics, right? They like to have, people put in place, right? Okay, what is going to be the best business decision value-wise, right? Where they you have these advisors in there, and it's going to be, they don't feel like where Steve Cohen almost felt like sort of like a rebel in a way, right? It kind of gives me that vibe a little bit. I could be very wrong, but doesn't feel like, a corporate kind of a guy, right? Feels more of like insanely wealthy, but gives you almost more of like that welcome to the family kind of a feel, where when it comes to these groups, right, these big corporations, it's more like they're looking at the analytics, they're looking at the numbers. I'm not saying Steve Cohen's not that, right? But these corporations tend to lean very heavily into that stuff. So my point being is, I don't see them just going out and just throwing money at people. Like
Sure.
that's not the vibe that I got right
Right.
off the bat.
And I think and that's not what Orioles fans even want them to do. I don't think Orioles fans want them, and the way the team is set up right now is to go out there and be a spender like the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Mets. I think what they want them to do is to get the talent and keep the talent. And what the worry was that with this flood of talent coming in all at the same time, there was just going to be this inability to keep, and it's still going to be difficult. Okay, I mean, as you get to a point where Rutschman and Gunnar and Jackson Holiday and you keep on going, Westberg develops into a stud, and Mayo develops into a stud, and Kowser develops into a stud, and you got Hayes, and you got Mountcastle, and you can't keep them all, but you have to identify the three, get them done, do what the Braves are doing. Angelos was never going to do that. They have to do what the Braves are doing and execute these contracts that sort of put the team in a position where they don't get crushed with, we got it. Now we slept on this. Now we got to give this player $35 million a year straight out of arbitration.
Yeah.
I do think that's one element here. We do have a lot of comments in the live chat. There's some heavy Baltimore viewership here tonight. Quick shout
I want to
out
comment on one of them.
Conman
Junior one.
Yeah, we had the comment. I also want to give a shout out to Conman who dropped a super chat earlier. How are things going in the park? I know you're going to get to it, but be ready for you and Robbie to see the O's at the top of the division for a while now. Thank God Angelos is going away. We do have there's Cal Ripken Jr. is going to be a part of the ownership group. I believe Rubenstein is from Baltimore. But here's the thing. What I feel best about for the Orioles is that Mike Elias is running the show. And I think that is going to be key for them. They don't need to go out and be crazy, but they need to strike when the moment is right and not have an owner that doesn't want to spend money. It doesn't have to spend the most money, but you gotta have a guy that's willing to spend money, or guys that are willing to spend money. And John Angelos just wasn't. John Angelos was one of the 5 worst owners in Major League Baseball, and his father, Peter Angelos, sort of set the standard as well. So it is a great day for the Orioles world that the Angelos family's moving out.
Yeah, and I know I will give them from a business point of view, I will give them a little bit of credit because I think they set this up probably the best way possible. All right, where there's not a lot of payroll, right? Because when these guys, they're buying, right, they're looking to take over a franchise organization. It's probably I would imagine it's probably a little better that there's not a whole lot of bad contracts. Right. There's obviously a lot of great contracts on here. These guys are getting paid minimal and they're winning 100 games last year. So I will give them a little credit there. At the end of the day, yes, Elias was the one that kind of put all this together. At the end of the day, though, it all trickles from the top, right? They were the one that brought in Elias. So they put together the organization to be in this position, right? So I'll give them a little credit there. But it's funny going back the last couple of off seasons, I've been thinking like, man, Carlos Correa just seemed perfect for them. All right. I know they had younger guys coming up too, but someone of that caliber over the last couple of years seemed right. Right. However, now it's funny in hindsight, when you look back at the last couple of years, well, it all makes sense now. And usually this stuff is in the works for over a few years, right? Yep. It's never like they wake up one day, let's just sell the team, right? This has been in the works, and I'm not surprised
it has
that the way they've been acting now. And of course, we've seen the reports prior to that they were looking to sell, but this is why they've been really stingy, especially this offseason, right? That to me was very telling that you just won 100 games and they weren't doing anything, right?
I don't think but you know what? I don't think they would have regardless. I really don't think that John Angelos was going to do the one element from a business standpoint that I think lines up perfectly is the stadium deal. So John Angelos was dragging his feet on this stadium deal, wanted to secure a deal that would allow him to develop the area around Camden Yards. And it took forever. This was the final year of their lease with the state. And they didn't get the deal done until the 11th hour. And even then they got some pushback from some political heads in the area. In the end, they got it done. But from a business standpoint, John Angelos did a good job there because he set that up so that this new ownership group has the opportunity to do their improvements and do what they want to do. So that is fantastic. I still don't think, because and I go back to the trade deadline last year. They did nothing at the trade deadline. And I think that comes from ownership. The Angelos family, I know they got it. I mean, and maybe that Chris Davis contract, if Peter Angelos and John Angelos ever wanted a reason to not spend big money on players, that Chris Davis contract is example A. But there are some moves. And hey, you know what? That Carlos Correa thing, it's great that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
It's fantastic that they didn't do that because they have the position players. They need the pitching.
Yeah. And one more thing I agree. Right. It ended up working out in hindsight. And one thing I want to touch on is I saw some people talking about Cal Ripken Jr. Yes, he will have a small ownership with the Orioles. It doesn't say, at least I haven't seen anything specific how much that is going to be. At the end of the day, though, I do want to make it, very clear, right? You got Rubenstein of the Carlisle Group and the Aries Management Corporation, right? Those are going to be the two massive pieces. Cal Ripken Jr., yes, he'll have a stake, right?
He'll have a suite.
Yeah, I think he's more, he'll be there. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see how this all unfolds. We'll probably find out more over the next week, I would imagine. But if I'm thinking of Cal Ripken Jr.'s role, obviously it's Cal Ripken Jr. first off, right? Orioles legend in baseball. So yes, there's that baseball side, obviously, the baseball knowledge. And I see him more as like, I don't want to say an advisor because he's obviously going to have some ownership in here, right? But that's kind of how I see him a little bit. Like I'm curious to see how much say he will have. I don't know that answer yet.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be in the meetings, right? He'll be there. He'll be a presence at some ownership activities and meetings, right? They won't have to, bring him in as an advisor, right? He won't have to be that. He'll be a part owner. He'll be there for Orioles Fan Fest. He'll be there for all that stuff. He'll be in meetings. He'll have, some kind of say on some aspects of the team, but certainly he's not going to be the guy that says we need Jordan Montgomery, go get him. Yeah. But I think that I think Orioles fans are going to probably like that. Again, the Angelos family, there was such a disconnect. And here's the other great thing. This is inside the organization stuff because, again, anyone want to know my background? I worked for WBAL Radio. WBAL Radio was the flagship broadcast station for the Baltimore Orioles. I've been in the warehouse for Orioles meetings. I've sold Orioles sponsorships. I have friends who worked for the Baltimore Orioles. Like, we get myself in trouble, but I don't think this is going to go far enough to where I get in trouble. But people that have worked for the Orioles, the white collar people that have worked for the Orioles have said that the Orioles are a mess internally. And that goes right to the top. And this is not baseball operation stuff. This is other elements of the team too.
Yeah.
So you got to think that you get a new ownership group in, you get Cal in there, you just have a complete facelift. Yeah. And so many things could get better now for this organization on the field, off the field, behind the scenes, community related, all that stuff could be tenfold improved.
They definitely seem to be going in the right direction. And it is interesting, I hate to tie this back. I hate to always try to tie things back to my Red Sox, but isn't it interesting kind of how we're seeing the Red Sox operate this offseason? I don't know. I'm not saying that's the same thing, but it makes you wonder a little bit. I don't know.
That's the kind of stuff you need to make some friends with some people who are like with the Red Sox, but not like that with the Red Sox. Like, they go to work there every day. They go to work there every day so they can give you the dirty, but they don't have baseball operations stuff. They're not players. They're the people that go to work there. Those are the people that I knew.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do just find it interesting,
Yeah.
right? Because
Mm,
it's just, if you just look
weird.
at what the Orioles have done over the last couple of years, their payroll is like, what? Hold on, I had their payroll pulled up. What is their payroll for this coming years? It's 100 million. That's crazy. Literally, you're paying $1 million per win, right? That's nutty. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I don't know,
That's
man.
yeah.
I
We could talk
wonder.
about this in circles. I think it's why they should. I mean, that's why you need to look at the players that you can extend right now. Get some cheap, get some Brandon Lau, get some Ozzy Albies, get some Freddie Peralta deals done now. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Spot Rack and look those up, guys. Those watching on YouTube, those listening on the podcast, go look those contracts up. Go get an Emmanuel Clase deal done. Go do those contracts now. So that way you don't get crushed in 2027.
Well, there are some moves that the Orioles are looking to make. Who knows? Maybe all of a sudden we just have a beautiful week for the Baltimore Orioles. I mean,
Maybe.
also, hey, speaking of the Blue Jays today, you had Justin Turner and Vlad Jr. is on the cover. Quick reaction to that. Do you agree with it? Or
yes?
What do you think? Obviously, you agree with it let's try to take the bias out of it.
Okay.
Take the bias out. From a baseball fan.
Yeah.
What do you think about Vlad on the cover?
I think that no bias. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. should be the cover athlete for that game in perpetuity until they sell that game back to EA Sports. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'll be all over that. Vlad can be all over the cover for MVP baseball if they bring it back.
There you go. So last year was Jazz Chisholm, and that was coming off Ohtani, which was coming off of Tatis. So going to Vlad is a great one because he is, even though he's coming off a down year, he's one of the most recognizable players in the sport. He's an exciting player, could have a monster year. I think there were a lot of people that wanted Ronald Acuna, and I can understand why you wanted Ronald Acuna Jr., but these things are what they are. If you were to ask me, give me 5 athletes for the cover of that game, I would have given you Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well. Again, you can't pick somebody that they can go back to somebody, but they typically don't. You can't reuse anybody they've already had. Give me 5 that you think should be on the cover of the game. I would have given you Ronald. I would have given you Vladdy. I would have given you, I mean, there's probably so many. Corbin Carroll. There are certainly a number of players. Vladdy would have been one of the 5 for sure.
Yeah, I think when it came to, I don't really know much about I don't know anything about the process, but I would imagine there's probably there has to be some financial aspect of it too. Like, what are they willing to pay them or whatever? I would imagine that has to be part of it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not quite sure how that works. I would imagine, Ronald Acuna Jr., if there was that, again, I'm speculating because I don't know the process, but who knows? Maybe that was an option they were looking for. And I feel like he's on some other stuff out there too. So I'm not sure if that, I think he has there's another game that he might be on, like a game in the App Store or something. I forget what it is. I'm not sure. But
right. I know what you mean. I feel like I've seen him too.
I feel like, honestly, like Vlad is a fun name, but he just had a down year. And so in a way, I can almost appreciate that he took it on, right? Okay, you know what? I'm going to get on the cover. I'm going to put pressure on myself. I'm going to have a good year, right? So I can appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
Then I could also see the prospects of, you can either go for someone that's very consistent every year, like a Jose Ramirez, right? I feel like every year he's never going to be that MVP guy, but he's going to be just very consistent, right? Or a younger guy like Adley Rutschman, right? I think that would have been, I would have loved that if Adley was on it. Could you imagine if for Adley or Gunnar Henderson were on it?
It's coming. That's definitely coming.
So, and then again, maybe not Gunnar Henderson coming off a rookie year. I don't know is that really a great idea if you're coming off a rookie season to just be on the cover right away? That's a lot of pressure on yourself.
You know what?
I could have seen it.
I would love to see, because of Baltimore and situation, like maybe next year, put the 2 of them up there.
Yeah.
But can you do an Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson cover where you have the 2 of them, right?
Yeah,
you have, Gunnar on one side holding the bat, Adley on the other side holding the bat. Like, I think you could, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, let's get to some more Orioles talk. There is word out there that, well, I wouldn't even say word like it's a rumor. Mike Elias talking to the reporters that they are aggressively, I'll read the quote, probably being as aggressive as any team out there on the trade market when it comes to starting pitching, right? The Orioles, they could absolutely go make a deal. I feel like we've talked about Dylan Cease so much this offseason. I feel like I can't even say the word cease almost like correctly because I feel like I'm just so tired of saying it.
Right.
And I've said this, I've been on record for this before. I actually think it might sound weird, but I actually think they're a better trade partner for Jesus Luzardo and the Marlins.
Me too.
I just feel like prospect wise, again, yes, Cease will be cheaper than Luzardo, still going to be expensive, but he's going to be cheaper because there's less control until he gets the free agency. But I think that would actually work more in the Orioles' favor because they have prospects that are very high value, like a Sam Basayo, right? He's look out for him, man. You want to talk prospects,
right?
Look out for him. But that could be a guy where, because you already have, you got like Kobe Mayo in there, and yes, Basayo could be a catcher, but you got Adley there. And if Basayo doesn't play catcher, first base, well, like I just said, that's where you have Mayo, right? So someone like Basayo could be expendable, but is that, if you give him, like, let's say Dylan Cease, well, that's already making up so much of the gap, because he's such a big prospect. So are you really going to get a whole lot else at that point? So that's where I don't know if the Orioles really line up very well for Dylan Cease, or as well as they would for the Marlins, where you could use a huge piece like Basayo, who is right near the top 10 when it comes to prospects in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Where you could use him, a couple other pieces like Joey Ortiz, maybe one more piece, and go get Jesus Luzardo.
I think you're dead on with that, because it feels like if the White Sox are getting pieces, they want pieces that can play now.
Yeah.
And the Marlins, I think you could execute a trade with guys that are still 2 or 3 years away. And that would work perfectly for the Baltimore Orioles. So,
and the Orioles,
way to go.
Maybe, I don't know, you could send back like a Major League ready piece if you wanted to bring back a pitcher, maybe, I don't know, like Dean Kramer or something like that. Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of whoever. I'm sure you could throw in a Major League piece in there. I could go back. That's honestly what I think ends up happening. If they do get a guy, I feel like it would probably be Jesus Luzardo. It just seems to make a lot of sense. We've heard some other names out there, like the Mariners, of course, right? We got Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, who knows? Maybe Luis Castillo, maybe Logan Gilbert. But then again, I also wonder too, would the Mariners want to trade with the Orioles, where two young and up and coming American League teams? The Orioles are pretty much there already. The Mariners are there too, but they're not fully there like the Orioles did last year. So I guess if it works out for both teams, where if they both get something they need, sure, right? But I don't know if the Mariners are going to trade with the Orioles unless they can get something back that they also could use, right?
Don't you see the Mariners are done, though, after getting Polanco yesterday? Like, they got their bat without having to deal one of those pitchers. So I kind of feel like the Mariners are off the table.
Yeah, unless they really wanted to, if they really wanted to add another bat, but at that point,
what would they get? The problem with the Orioles is, what would they get? Like, the only bats that are impactful right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we look. Westberg may be great. Kauser may be great. Mayo may be great. All those guys may be great, but we don't know. And if Seattle's getting something back, don't they want something that's going to help them right now, that they know is going to help them right now? So you're looking at like Mullins or Santander, and I don't think it doesn't. That doesn't get the job done. So it's a weird space for what Seattle wants back and what Baltimore would most likely be comfortable parting with. That's why, like you said, Miami. I think that the Luzardo thing is the perfect fit. Or maybe if they can get it for cheap, a Shane Bieber trade. If they can get, because you don't get locked into a long-term contract, it's going to be a 1-year deal. You're taking the $13 million off of Cleveland's payroll, and because of that, you shouldn't have to give up that much.
Yeah.
And he's a nice, stable piece for that rotation. So feel like one of those two avenues are the way to go, is a deal for Bieber. Burns isn't going anywhere. I think Cease, look, if you could let me answer this, Robbie. If you had your choice between Cease and Luzardo, and the packages were pretty close, but you had to throw in one more prospect to get Luzardo, wouldn't you do that over Cease because you get that extra year?
That extra year could end up being worth
$25 million. Yeah.
Yeah. Like let's say Luzardo, like Luzardo last year, I believe he was right around $30 million worth of value with what he put onto the field. I would absolutely go Luzardo because it's so hard to get cost-controlled starting pitching, right? And if you have having someone like that for one more year than Cease, it's so huge. Like you can't even. It's just such a, when you think of supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
This is why these guys are expensive. If I were to look up Luzardo right now, he was worth $29.7 million last year. So yeah, if you could give up one more prospect to get, let's say, one more year worth of $30 million of pitching, I'm doing that. Right? Especially for an Orioles team. That's the thing. They're just entering this window. And like, you bring Luzardo into that fold for the next 3 years. It's so perfect to me.
Be amazing. Right? Yep.
Where like Cease, it almost feels like, okay, we only got Cease for 2 years. Where Luzardo, you feel a little more comfortable there. Okay, we got him for 3 years. Okay, we can breathe a little bit.
And
Cease,
you don't
it almost feels like you gotta win now in the next couple of years.
And you don't know what Cease is. What is he right now? Yeah. Is he going to be the guy he was in 2021, which was good, but it wasn't Cy Young? Or is he going to be the guy in 2022 where he was pitching for the Cy Young? Or could it be what he was last year? A guy that didn't look that great at times. So like, who's he going to be? I think he averages out to be, you put those three together and come out, spit out one average season out of those three numbers. I think that's what you're going to get from Dylan Cease moving forward. Yeah. That's Jesus Luzardo's coming off a very nice season. And he's, I believe, even still younger than Dylan Cease, Jesus Luzardo is. All signs point to go get Luzardo done.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with it. I agree. Cease, and I'll say this too. I feel like Cease, in my opinion, doesn't really, yes, he would make the Orioles better, but I don't know. Is Cease carrying you to a World Series? I feel like, I don't know what it is. And then people will say, like, well, Luzardo, is he going to carry you to a World Series? Like, there's just something, I think, a little better about Luzardo. Like, I feel like if you put him on that stage, we just saw him in the postseason this past year where he looked really good. And I don't know, man. I think if you put him on a competitive team, he's one of those guys, I feel like, like Montgomery this year. Put him on that stage, and he gets set up really nicely for free agency. That's kind of how I could see Luzardo ending out, right? We'll see, man. We'll see. I think out of all of it, I think Luzardo is the best option for them if they do indeed go that route. They go perfectly together, right? Orioles have bats. The Marlins lack bats in both the major leagues and in their system, right? You even said someone like Santander. Maybe you could even like package Luzardo and Santander in there, right? And just do something there, right? That gives them a bat for now. Like you can make it work.
You really can. They have been, and the first we heard of Luzardo, and I started thinking about what trade packages could be there. When we've had Cease out all off season, when Luzardo popped up, and Orioles fans hated me for my Cease comments because I kept saying you're not the best trade partner here. There's like 3 or 4 teams ahead of you. I got crushed for that. But I think they are the perfect trade partner for Miami. And I would rather have Luzardo.
Yeah, it's not about whether or not you have the prospects, and that's why I see these articles and these people, these experts out there, where they say the Orioles have so many prospects. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like it's about the fit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, having a lot of prospects matters, but is it going to be right for each organization, right?
Yep.
What they're looking for. So we did have a trade yesterday. That was nice to actually see something like that. And I actually came up with it, not the exact trade, but the idea of it about a week ago, right? Jorge Polanco going to the Mariners. Right off the bat, I saw that it looked like a slight overpay. It looked a little
Yeah.
lopsided,
Yeah.
but not like a crazy amount. But then there was some cash involved, and surprisingly, you ended up getting a lot of cash going to the Twins. So it ended up being
Yeah.
even more lopsided.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Whoa, why are you sending all that cash to the Twins?" Like that was what kind of blew my mind on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um that was a lot, right? But then when you think
Yep.
about the Mariners and their history, when they want someone, they tend to do what they have to do to get it done, right? You look at
Mm-hmm.
just the Luis Castillo trade, right? Throwing in Edwin Arroyo, which ended up being, in hindsight, a very good move for them, right? Edwin Arroyo was this guy, fast riser in their system. He was kind of just blowing up the place, right? And they were like, okay, here, we'll even give you Edwin Arroyo along with Noelvi Marte.
Right.
And people were like, wow, you're giving up both those guys? And in hindsight, Edwin Arroyo, his stock has dropped a little bit. Hasn't been the same guy that he was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mariners have done this before where they tend
Mm-hmm.
to overpay to get the guy they want. And in the end, you gave up a couple of prospects there, right? Gonzalez is one of them, decent prospects, I think in the 70 range, mid 70s. Even though it wasn't overpay, it's still like kind of like the Castillo trade. Yeah, it definitely hurt, but I still liked it. And I
Yeah.
feel the same way about this one. I still
Yeah.
like it,
Yeah.
even though they definitely had to give up a lot. So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I I agree with you. I look at this trade as a win-win trade. I believe it sort of leans. If I had to pick a definitive winner, I would lean closer to Minnesota because of everything they got. Bringing in Desclafani, you can add him to that rotation, and he gave San Francisco some very good starts. You add him to the back of that rotation, you can move Varland back into the bullpen.
Yeah.
So in theory, Minnesota gets two relievers out of this by being able to move Varland back to the pen. So the pen is better. The rotation is, I would argue, better because I think Varland's better in the bullpen than he is in the rotation. And they get a prospect to work on. And they get another pitching prospect to work on. So I love what this did for Minnesota. And I like what this, I really like what this did for Seattle because they get their bat. And on top of getting their bat, they didn't have to give up any of the five that are currently in that rotation. And that is what we had been hearing all offseason is that they were maybe going to have to do that. They kept them and they get a 30 homer guy. Polanco's only done it once, but if he stays healthy, I think the ceiling for Polanco is 30 homers. In Seattle, when you looked at that lineup before the deal went down, they needed another guy with pop. They needed more slugging. And Polanco, if he stays healthy, is going to do that. He's not going to give you solid defense at second base, but that's not why you did this deal. He's going to strike out a bunch, but yeah, everybody strikes out a bunch on Seattle. They needed a guy that could close his eyes and hit one over the fence. And Polanco can do that. You didn't have to give up the starter. And you're right. They know their guys, maybe better than Minnesota knows their guys. And when they were going through the process of selecting the players, they managed to select the players that they feel fine leaving, right? Sending out the door because maybe they're at their ceiling already and there isn't much more room to grow. So I like it for both sides, but I do lean a little bit more towards the Twins' return here.
Yeah, I love the addition of Gabriel Gonzalez. Like I said, solid prospect. He didn't set the world on fire, but he put up just good, solid numbers in the minor leagues last year. And then it's kind of one of those things like where the way I look at this, like on baseball trade values, it was rejected by the model. where it was a huge overpay. But I kind of look at it like, I don't know, I'm trying to like put an analogy together. Like, let's say let's say you're trying to get a couch. I'm putting together a stupid analogy already.
Go for it. Follow it.
You're trying to get a couch, right? Buddy's like, all right, I got this couch. It's really good, right? What are you going to give me for it? Well, I got all these really, pretty good things that I have that I could give him that I don't need. He could use them more. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of one of those things where you're giving up.
Value is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Right. It's sort of like they just gave up pieces they didn't necessarily need that had good value. And the way I kind of almost imagine it happening, they're on the phone and the Twins are like, okay, we'll give you, Gabriel Gonzalez. That's the one piece we want back. The Mariners say, okay, all right, we can do that.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're like, we need a pitcher. Sonny Gray, right? We lost him. Thinking you send us Desclafani? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
That Darren Bowen guy, really good, right? We like him a lot. Not a whole lot of value. But we like him, right? Decent piece for the organization, right? Can you do that? Yeah, okay, we'll throw that in. Feels like deal's almost done, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're like, hey, you know what? We were thinking. We wanted to get this deal done, but we really need Topa too, right? Think you could throw him in for us? Oh, Topa?
Right.
Really? Come on, he was good come on, we got to get this deal done, man. Just throw in Topa. Just throw him in. Oh, all right, fine. We'll do freaking Topa too, right?
Yeah.
And then you're about to pull the trigger, and they're like, listen, can you pay Desclafani? Oh, come on. Just do it. Just pay Desclafani. Fine. Take the money. That's how I saw it.
Well, they could go the other way. It could go the other way. There could have been another team, or at least it was presented as another team's in on Polanco. And if you want Polanco, this is what you got to do. The asset here that was coveted was Polanco, not any of those pieces that went from Seattle to Minnesota. That's not that's the phone call was made by Seattle to Minnesota, most likely. The coveted piece was Polanco, and because of that, you may have to appear to overpay for the piece, especially if other teams are paying are calling on Polanco. Quick shout out to Skull TYA Catch 84. I also think he became a member of your channel. I think he's a member of my channel recently too. Skull, thank you. Dropping a super chat as well. Thad Levin, I don't think he has lost a trade yet. The cash helps them go after free agency. I'm happy being a Twins fan right now. I think Twins fans should come away from this trade.
Thank you.
Very happy.
Yeah, and another thing that it does for the Twins, and I talked about this on my channel last night, where it really gives them more flexibility in their lineup.
Yeah.
Right? It kind of gives more playing time, right, to Julian, right? That was a guy that really had himself a decent season last year.
Right.
Kind of opens up that DH spot so Buxton can go DH a lot, hopefully, play some center here and there. But it really opens up a lot more opportunities for the Twins, and it gives them, in my opinion, really needed versatility there, flexibility.
Yep.
So that's where I think Polanco, he's good, right? But I think for the Twins, they saw more value in having more freedom, right? Instead of just locking in Polanco there. So that's where I see it. And you brought up the super chat. We also had another super chat earlier from Swingman Lou. How you doing, Swingman? Says, what up, my guys? The Red Sox are going to do Jack Bleep. This is a child-friendly show. I cannot say those words. Former teacher. I can't do it. But I think that, I don't know, man. Papelbon was talking. With, I believe it was Foul Territory. Don't remember exactly. Maybe it might have been the Play Tessie crew. Go follow that podcast, Red Sox fans, if you don't know Play Tessie. Good guys. But he said that he feels like the Red Sox have something up their sleeve. I feel like I think they're just waiting it out. And it's kind of one of those things where Red Sox fans are going, come on, sign him, do it. Okay, no one is signing Jordan Montgomery. No one is signing Blake Snell. So, they're waiting for the market to come down. Like, you got Ken Rosenthal earlier, right? Like, saying, oh, what are the Red Sox doing? He's just bashing on them. These
Ken's got it out. Ken's got it out for somebody in Boston right now. He is not happy with them.
No, and but it's like, Ken, come on, dude. If I was the guy like in an organization, I'd be like, Ken, you know how this stuff works, right? The market right now for these guys is garbage, right? We're just waiting for them to come down, right? That's what it is, in my opinion. Yes, could you go out and go call Montgomery right now, get something done? Sure. They're playing a risky game. They did it with JD Martinez, right? Back in 2018.
Yep.
Do you remember JD Martinez won it 7 years and 210 million? Do you remember that, Jim?
I do remember that.
That was a lot of money that they were looking for. And of course it was ridiculous. And the Red Sox knew that they were really like the only team that made sense for JD Martinez, or that made the most sense for JD Martinez. There were other teams, but the Red Sox had the clear need. This feels like the JD Martinez thing. It really does with Jordan Montgomery. Because it's like, if the Rangers had the money, they would have already done this. It would have already happened, in my opinion. I don't know. So to me, unless like a surprise team like the Cubs or the Phillies, I even brought up the Astros last night. I don't see that, but they shocked us with Hader.
There's going to be another.
Stay in Texas, maybe they can make something happen. I don't know.
There will be another surprise. There'll be another surprise. I'm convinced of it. There will be another surprise.
That's what I mean. Like, the only way I see Jordan Montgomery not going to the Red Sox is if he goes to a team like no one, like the Astros, like no one is thinking about. I keep pushing the Astros. I'm not trying to. It feels people are probably thinking I'm just trying to just create nonsense or whatever. But like, no, like if you wanted to make an upgrade to this rotation, you could. Like Jose Urquidy, you could do something with him. Like, I don't know. So anyway, just an idea. But you know what I mean? So Swingman Lou, I do think the Red Sox do something in the next few weeks. I just feel like they kind of need to, especially on the pitching side of things. So, but thank you for the super chats, everyone. Jim, any last words before we wrap this up for tonight?
That is it from me. I do appreciate us, and everybody out there hopping in, talking with us, live chat with us. This is fun to do, to record the podcast on the YouTube channels, kind of bouncing back and forth, finding time to get this done. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to get into, and you guys with the super chats and just the comments throughout, it's great. We have another super chat coming in from Ben. He's not going to let us go. Ben with the comment, I'm back, and so are the Orioles. Now they will finally trade for Fromber. Hey, you know what? Man, that's your Jordan Montgomery connection. They signed Jordan Montgomery, then they trade for Framber Valdez to the Orioles.
Go.
I mean, again, it is. Parting words for me again. Make sure, everybody, that those of you that are following us on YouTube, we love you. Make sure to go and subscribe to the podcast. Download that thing. Listen to it when you're on the go. We really would love your support to help grow this thing and continue the momentum that we're building there. And if you, this is another thing I wanted to say. If you have content creator for your team, if there's somebody on Twitter that you follow, if you have an audience with that person, meaning maybe they follow you back, tag them. We would love to have more guests on here. We would love to reach out to more teams. We are a national show. We have touched on half the teams in the league right now. So we're not opposed to doing a Orioles deep dive or a Texas Rangers deep dive or anything. So if you have somebody you follow that you think, man, the White Sox, if you have somebody that you follow that you're like, man, I would love to hear my guy who does this White Sox podcast come on and chop it up with Jim and Robbie. Jim's been critical of Chris Getz. Let's put them together and see what they talk about.
Chris Getz on the show.
Let's get Chris Getz on the show. Anybody know Chris Getz? So anyway, help us out. Help us grow this thing. If there's somebody you want to see us have as a guest, tag them on social media and see if you can get their attention.
Sounds good. Yeah, man. But everyone, please, if you can, go download the podcast, whether, Spotify, Google, Stitcher. Ben Lowry, one more time, $4.99. Have on Hum Baby Baseball, man.
I will do that. We'll do that. Ben, done.
Probably season preview, I would think. Probably the season previews. That'd be good for the Giants.
He has some really good. He would be good for the Giants. He also does some really good MLB content on his YouTube channel where he touches on like
historical
busts
stuff.
and things like that. And I've had him on before, and we dove into one of his. He had So we have had him on in the past. We had him on to talk about. He had the 10 most ridiculous. What the hell's? Why can't I think of the word? He had a 10 worst something. I can't remember what it is right now. For some reason, my mind is fried. He has a bunch of those. I had him on after one of those videos, and we talked about it. So Ben, we'll definitely have Eric on soon.
Yeah, for sure. Ben Lowry, thank you, my friend. Thank you for those and the other super chats as well. Skull TYA Catch 84 Swingman Lou, thank you. Everyone, we're gonna get out of here. If you can, again, go download the podcast, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. Leave a review if you can. 5-star would be wonderful if you could do that. But everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. We do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.